Hi, everyone. Welcome back to my guest podcast series for the World of Autism. My name is Michelle Curve. I'm an autistic self advocate, and I'm excited to have on my podcast series, I got Amber White. How are we doing today, Amber?
Fabulous. It's Friday.
I know. So glad it's Friday.
I know. Very exciting.
Yeah. So I would love for you to share a little bit about yourself for people who don't know you.
Sure. Well, thank you so much for having me. I feel honored and I've been excited about this since we started communicating through Instagram. My name is Amber. I am a BCBA and I work in Texas. I just moved to Texas from Florida. I'm originally from Connecticut. I lived in Connecticut, Nebraska, Hawaii. So lots of movement in my life. But I grew up in Connecticut, and that's where I went to school and got my education. And my master's degree I got in Nebraska. So as a child, school was always really hard for me. Now, not only was school hard for me, but like life life was hard. I think back to when I was 3, and I can remember all the way back to when I was 2, and it's amazing the things that my brain can remember. And it, unfortunately, a lot of my memories are really negative
Mhm.
and confusing. I remember, being confused as a little kid, confused about what the other kids were doing, confused about what the teachers were saying. And one of like the earliest memories where I realized that I was different, like I can remember it vividly. I was acting out a scene from Sesame Street in my preschool class, and I wanted the other kids to play with me. And I was loud. God, was I so loud? I was just a loud kid. I'm a loud adult too. But we were in the phone booth, and the phone booth was also in Sesame Street. So I'm acting it out and I'm loud and I'm shouting, and my teacher started yelling at me. And I'm just like, we're just playing. And she was just yelling.
Mhm.
And it was so confusing. And then I remember her pulling my mom aside, and like she did it in front of me too, and saying, like, we're concerned with about your daughter. And they sent me off to this summer camp, right? For all of us with disabilities. And I remember kids in wheelchairs. I remember kids who are not speaking, um, kids with pretty significant like physical challenges as well. And I remember circle time, and I was 3. So I took over circle time. I was reading the book and I was reading all of the words, and I was helping the kids follow along, and I would push the kids in their wheelchairs. And like, so for as long as I can remember, I have been helping others who have challenges. And I mean, I could talk about this for like 6 hours. So this is my special interest.
Yeah, I
um,
completely get you on that.
yeah, so please stop me if I keep rambling. But even in high school, I would volunteer my free periods in a classroom where the kids would get bussed in from around. And I remember just being like, oh my God, that's so sad that they can't stay at their regular school. Like they just meet.
That's what I deal with.
And so also to go back to when I was 3, my parents had me evaluated. I don't remember the evaluation. I don't remember seeing the psychiatrist. I don't remember any of it, but it's hard now to get a girl diagnosed as autistic. So
Yep.
imagine 30 years ago. I have been misdiagnosed with things my entire life. So it's been very confusing, like bipolar, borderline personality disorder, like so many misdiagnosed. And at this point, I'm like, I don't even care. I know what I am. I figured it out.
Yeah.
um, so I have always said, like, I'm going to work with kids with disabilities. And for some reason, when I was going to get my master's degree, I'm like, no way, I'm not doing autism. Nope, can't do it. No. like ironic, because here I am, 10 years later, opening up my own center. And I remember being a special education teacher because that's where I started. I did that for 8 years.
Oh, wow.
It was so challenging I taught in Connecticut, Nebraska, and Hawaii. And it was the same thing. People would tell me to make my kids do things, and I'm like, if I can't explain to them why I'm making them do it, then I'm not making them do it. And it just, after the 8th year of that, I just was like, I need to do something else. And there were BCBAs who were coming into my classroom, and I'm like, oh my gosh, everybody listens to them. They have 4 letters after their name. I want that, because I intuitively just know what kids need, and I know how to communicate with them, especially the ones who are not speaking or not yet speaking. It's like I can read their mind because I understand. And being a BCBA for the last 4 years and being neurodivergent has been exciting, because you have people who are neurotypical and they want to change autistic kids, and they want them to do things that just, I'm sorry, our brains are just different. And the goal for me is to just always help my kids communicate to the best of their ability and be understood, to be happy, and to be as independent as possible. So I think that kind of is my story in like the briefest nutshell that I could make.
No, it's all good. It's amazing though, like pretty much your own self-discovery, like of getting like your self-discovery of like where you're at now, like pushed you to work with people with disabilities. Like it's incredible.
I mean, I have lots of really sad stories about me as a little kid with my dad, and just like not understanding my father. I just didn't understand what he wanted ever. It was just so confusing to me. You're saying one thing, but you're doing something else. So what do I do? Like,
Yeah.
and I wish that I had someone to like help me understand or help me communicate my confusion, because the tantrums, the meltdowns, the elopement that I used to do,
Yeah.
it clicked for me when I started to work with these kids and hear about their development. I'm like, oh my God, I did that. Oh my God, I still do that. Oh my God, that sounds just like me. And figuring out that, like, oh, Amber, that's why things were so confusing for you. It's been really powerful, and now I'm not afraid to tell anyone. Like, listen, I don't have a medical DSM-5 diagnosis, but I know for sure
Yeah.
who I am and how my brain is. And I'm so sorry, but like what you're saying doesn't make sense. And people are just like, what?
Right. Now I get that. I really do get that, especially like, sometimes there are times like you start to figure out like what really fits and what fits for you and stuff. And sometimes it's through others. Like you start to
Mhm.
learn that, you know,
Yeah, I'm like, wait, I'm teaching you guys to use your coping skills and I'm not using mine. So I need to start practicing what I preach. It's been like learning from the kids that I've worked with about myself and how to be a better advocate. Because although that's not my title, that's yours, but that's what I'm doing. Especially, I think one of the most challenging things in my career is neurotypical parents and the expectations that they have for their kids, and me communicating, hey, listen, like this is how your kid's brain works, and this is your expectation is just unrealistic. It's been that, I think, has been the biggest challenge as a behavior analyst. And there's been a lot of times where I'm afraid to tell parents like, hey, listen, I am autistic too. Like I get why your daughter is locked in her room for 4 or 5, 6 hours at a time. You can't make her come out. You got to just let her breathe through it. And like I'm still getting better about communicating that. But I think the world we live in also needs to do a lot of changing. And I hope that I can have some sort of impact on that too.
And that's what, I definitely can relate to that myself. Like, I've been, like, through the school district, like, I've been working as a behavior specialist. Like, I'm fairly new with that. The ABA company I work with on the side, I work as an RBT. So, which I've been doing that now for over a year. And I've been really happy about that. But with the school district, I've had a lot of challenges in regards to like people changing that perspective of like sometimes we need to wait things out and it's okay. Like, yeah, I get that there's all those pressures from like the state, like to be able to like meet curriculum ends, but at the same time, it's like it's not always about academics. Like we need to focus
No,
on
like
like
our
actual
well-being.
skills. Yeah.
Yeah, like our well-being. And I watch, like
Mhm.
I have a kiddo who's gonna start with me and like he can't make a mistake. And that's not like intrinsically within us. Like
Mm.
that's society and the pressure that they're putting on this little 5-year old. Like his brain is developing and he is panicking because he drew Mario the wrong way. And I'm like, whoa, we got to work through this before we start working on sitting down and raising our hand. But
Yeah,
it's so hard because, like, people don't understand that self regulation just doesn't come naturally to everybody.
it doesn't.
No,
Mm-mm.
no, I could tell you, like, I remember my tantrums and kicking and screaming, and I'm strong, and I was strong when I was little too. And
That
if
was the same with
if
me. I did the same exact things. I actually one fact about with me that be cool to share with you. Like for me, I didn't verbally say my first word until I was 6 years old.
oh my goodness,
Yeah, no joke.
that
I
must have been
yeah,
so challenging. What was that like? Because I started talking so early. I'm the complete opposite,
yeah.
all early stuff.
Yeah, when I tell people that, I'm like, it was basically a lot with temper tantrums, a lot with also elopement. Like I would just no fear of like safety at
Oh
all.
God, no, same.
No fear of safety at all. Like I didn't there like if people try to call my name, like I was zero responsive. Zero. Like I don't like for me, I don't recall too much early
Mm.
on in life just because of my lack of awareness back then. Like I had zero awareness of anything in the
Well,
environment.
and I can't imagine what that's like to like not, and I know what it's like to not be understood, but to not even speak and try to, you can't even try to get
Yeah,
somebody to
I
understand
couldn't.
you. I
I
can't
really
imagine.
couldn't.
You go
Yeah.
straight to fight or flight. And I mean, at this point in my life, I don't mind sharing this. Like, I was in fight or flight my entire life, that my hormones are imbalanced now. And that's why I want to provide therapy. Not because when I learned that ABA caused trauma, I'm like, oh, not happening with me. It's not, I think that's like the hardest part to of like, I'm not afraid to say I'm a behavior analyst. When people ask me like, what do you do? I'm like, oh, I work with autistic kids. And that's typically where I leave it because of the stigma. But like,
Mhm.
because I was in fight or flight for my entire life and I was misunderstood and I was scared and I was confused,
Right.
I want to help kids avoid that because now I'm 33 and I'm in therapy. My therapy bill is insane.
Mhm.
So I think that's a huge part of why I do what I do. And it's unfortunate that there are a lot of people in this field that have just destroyed the name for us. But I'm hoping that as I continue to grow in this career and get more secure with who I am, like maybe I will at some point get a formal diagnosis. I don't feel like I need it. Um, but if that's going to help people understand that ABA can help and it can be harmless, then I'll do whatever I can to advocate for my kids and help the rest of the world learn that there is a way to help without trying to change who someone is. It's sad. It makes me sad.
I know, and it's just unfortunately like where people are taking it, especially even like for in the autism community itself, that like there's been such controversy about it because of the fact that like how much that the field has evolved. It's not the same as it was back then. It's also about the quality of services. The problem that I've noticed is that we're too much focused on quantity.
Oh
When we're
God.
so much focused on quantity, that's where a lot of the trauma is happening
Yep.
because you're not able to provide the best quality of services that also, which in our ethics in regards to with client dignity, like you have to be able to be there for the clients and for their best interests. And it's just that when we're not focused on quality and honestly, having a much smaller caseload would be such a big difference.
You're
So I
speaking
just,
my language.
yeah,
Well,
I
I
I get you on
completely.
that because this is what I deal with also with the school district, dealing with a million kids, and I can't provide the best I can for these kids because I'm not consistently there, and it just that's what's insane about it. It's even for me, I'll be honest with you, and I haven't mentioned this too much to many people yet, but I actually have thought of reconsidering things for the first time. Like I've reconsidered like changing paths a little bit, like because that if if change is not going to happen from them, then nothing's going to work.
And I
Nothing's going to
can't
work
tell you how
if
many times
yeah.
I've done that as well. So I worked for an agency where they put me on hold with kids because I wouldn't give them 40 hours.
Mm.
Oh, this like clearly brings up some rage.
Yeah, I get
And
you.
and like because someone is autistic, that doesn't give you the right to make a ton of money off of them.
Mm.
And that's why I'm here now at this center in tech that I completely up and moved my life because I can only control, like, I picture it like a ripple, right?
Yeah.
So I can control what's in here. And when I start to worry about what's out here, that's when I start to lose it
Mhm.
and reconsider, right? So I'm like, okay, maybe I just go for occupational therapy and I literally can't have a high caseload and I can work on sensory integration and
Yeah.
that's been that route. Or maybe I quit and do a consulting business on my own, but then like the money thing freaks me out. And
Mhm.
so what I'm trying to tell myself now is stay in control of your emotions.
Yeah. I get
work
you.
work on this center right here and know that you're going to have an impact on this RBT, this RBT, this RBT, and this RBT, and this mom and this mom and this mom, and then the ripple effect begins, because that feeling of I am up against it, like you feel backed into a corner. Because and I've been on calls where I'm the only neurodivergent person on the call and every other BCBA is neurotypical and they are completely disagreeing with everything I'm saying, and I'm like, okay, what's the point of me even speaking if no one's going to listen?
Right.
But there are people who have listened and there are people who will listen, and if there's not more of us like me and you in this, then it's never going to change and kids are going to continue to get abused and taken advantage of.
Mhm.
And that the thought of the kids and the community that we are a part of being taken advantage of is is like what keeps me going. And I'm still young, so I haven't burnt out yet. So
Yeah.
I hope and I pray like every day that that's why when you gave me this opportunity, I'm like, yes, somebody else who gets me and she's in ABA. There just has to be more of us.
Yeah.
And it's hard. We are a very small minority.
I've honestly have considered for myself too, like branching out in regards to now, like just trying to fix workplaces because like I just, that's the big thing. Like if they're not going to change, not it's like you said, there's that ripple effect. It all starts from the higher up. You don't change your ways, it's gonna impact everybody else.
And so what I've learned is because the example with the 40-hour kid,
Yeah.
I lost my cool. Because I was so I sent her research articles on how just I can go on for hours about this, but I lost my cool. Therefore, she didn't receive my message because I was emotional and I cried and I told her she was insensitive. Like the way that I communicated my disagreement was unprofessional and she didn't hear me. So, from that experience, I've learned, all right, Amber, you got to take a step back and you have to think about your words so that that person who doesn't get you will get you. And I've gotten so much better in the last 2 years. Like I was committed to like, all right, you gotta help people understand. Because that's one thing about me. I'm very passionate and I get very emotional and I have really big feelings.
Yeah. I get
So
you. I'm the
if
same
the
way.
if the message isn't received, then change is never going to take place. So I've had to work on my emotional regulation as an adult and like how to articulate in the right way so that they're like, oh, she has a point. And the current company I'm at, we don't have any kids yet. The center is still opening. We have an open house today, which is really exciting. But the
What's the name of the center?
Success on the Spectrum. So it's a franchise, and I don't like to compare it to Starbucks, but it's kind of like Starbucks, like where the CEOs are their own entity, but we report to the franchise. We have so much freedom, which is beautiful because sitting in a training with BCBAs who are like, we're going to teach to targets. We're going to tact dog. I'm like, I don't teach to targets. I teach skills. And they said, okay, whatever you need to do. And I'm like, oh my gosh, finally, finally. And there's less regulation. But because I am explaining myself in a manner where, yeah, they're never going to get me ever. We sat in a 2-hour training and we didn't get a break. I'm like standing on my head. I'm like, I need to get up and move. So I know they'll never really get me, but if I can explain things to them in a logical manner, then they're going to listen. So that's been really nice over the last 2 years to see how my self growth has affected the kids that I work with, because now parents are like, oh, okay, that makes sense. And CEOs are like, okay, Amber, whatever you say. And I'm like, finally. So that's huge part of why I'm still going. But I have many times reconsidered, like, man, can I do this for a long time?
Wow. That is really inspiring. And just to just the powerful message of like, just to continue to grow yourself. And it has like such a ripple effect on everything else. I think that that was such a great way to end things here because like, it's just for people to take away that, when you focus on yourself, it impacts everything else that's in your life from like, uh your kind of relationships, like professional, personal, like everything.
Everything.
It
Yeah.
really does. So I just want to thank you so much for sharing with that, and even about yourself too, those for those for people who don't know you and everything. But And I just want to share for everybody that, make sure to follow Amber online on Instagram, and to follow her journey as the ABA company opens up. Very exciting.
Yeah, thank you. I know you'll be able to see more and more. Like our Instagram, I think we have like 5 or 6 posts, but like once it gets bigger, it'll be just so exciting to look back on this. And I'm so grateful for this opportunity.
Oh, absolutely. And just for people to know that you can follow me online on all social media platforms as Exceptional Shell. That's at my user tag name is at Self Advocate MV. So make sure to follow that and to follow and subscribe to my blog website, The World of Autism, for more great content.